Hello, I'm Colleen Gallagher, CEO at OnWrd UpWrd, and you're listening to the Association Insights podcast powered by OnWrd UpWrd, where each week we interview association leaders from across the country to hear how they're trying new things, taking big risks, and delivering value for their members. We'll explore the realities of what it means to work in and with associations and bring you the insights and inspiration you need to advance your career and make big changes at your association. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Association Insights podcast powered by OnWrd UpWrd. I'm your host, Colleen Gallagher, and today's episode is coming to you in the middle of what feels like peak conference season. We have multiple clients hosting their annual meetings right now, and it's always one of the most energizing and honestly, one of the most important times of year for associations. And I know associations have their annual meetings all year round, depending on what association you are. So whether this is your time of year or there is another one coming up soon, I think you're going to enjoy this episode. When you step back and think about it, your annual meeting is one of the only moments where you have your members, your leadership, your industry, and your content all in one place at the same time. And what I've been reminded of this week is just how much opportunity there truly is in that moment when you approach it strategically. So today I want to talk about how I'm seeing leading associations are thinking about their annual meetings differently and how they're turning them into real drivers of visibility, credibility, and momentum that extend far beyond the event itself. So first, the biggest shift. The associations that get the most out of their events, they don't think of them as just an experience. They think of them as a visibility moment. Yes, of course the attendee experience matters. And yes, logistics and programming and networking are absolutely critical. But the organizations that really maximize these moments are also asking a few questions. So they want to know, what do we want to be known for coming out of this event? What conversations do we want to shape? And how are we showing up as a leader in our industry right now? Because your annual meeting is one of the few times where you truly have your industry's attention. And if you're not thinking about visibility, if you're not thinking about storytelling and positioning in that moment, you're just leaving a lot on the table. The second thing I'm seeing from the strongest associations, they don't go into their events hoping that something resonates. They go in with a real clear point of view. They know what they want to say, what matters most right now for their profession or their industry, and how they want to show up in those conversations. And that might look like new data or research being released, an executive director or CEO or board chair that has a really strong perspective. Or maybe it's just a clear stance on a key issue that's impacting their members today. Whatever it is, it's intentional, it's not reactive, and it's definitely not scattered. And this ties so closely to something I talk about all the time, especially coming out of my earlier solo cast this year on the podcast around becoming the go-to voice in your industry. This does not happen by accident. It happens when you consistently show up with clarity, relevance, and perspective. And that annual conference is such a huge opportunity to do exactly that. The third shift I'm seeing is around content. And this is where I think a lot of associations are really starting to evolve over the last few years. Because yes, you've got your keynote sessions and your panels and your ed sessions or presentations, but the most valuable content coming out of events right now, it isn't always those polished, scripted moments. It's those conversations in the hallway, reactions to what's being discussed, member perspectives, the real-time insights. And the associations that are doing this well are capturing quick video interviews in the hallways. They're getting on-the-ground reactions. They're grabbing speaker sound bites after they're backstage. They're talking to members, getting quick member takeaways. And they're really doing it in a way that feels human and not overly produced, which is tricky. Because really, that's the stuff that resonates. And that's what people actually engage with whether it's on LinkedIn, in media conversations, or just in follow-up content and emails. Here's a big one I'm seeing, and something that we're really intentional about with our clients. The strongest associations, they're using their events as an opportunity to elevate their members and their exhibitors. Not just celebrate them internally, but actually showcase them. So this can look like hosting a media day style setup on site, featuring your most innovative companies in some way, scheduling interviews with key member leaders or award winners, capturing some quick professional video clips for social, spotlighting member stories in real time. There's a lot of things you can do for this, but here's why it matters so much. Your members, they want to feel seen, they want to feel valued, and they want to understand the ROI of being part of your organization. How many times in your staff meetings do you talk about member ROI and member value? Well, this is your chance. When you put them in front of media, in front of your broader audience, or on your social platforms, you're not just telling your story, you're helping them tell theirs. And that's powerful, really powerful. It builds trust, loyalty, and engagement. And it reinforces that being part of your association means something beyond just attending an event. It means being part of the bigger conversation. That's when it starts to get special. The next big differentiator, the event, it doesn't end when people go home. In fact, in a lot of ways, that's when the real opportunity is just starting. So the association's doing this well. They're thinking about how can our content get repurposed? How are we turning these insights into thought leadership? How media conversations are going to continue? How social momentum builds? And so that might mean we're turning sessions into blog content or even social snippets. We're pitching follow-up media angles. We're, planning another time to talk to those reporters that came on site. We're sharing clips and quotes over the next several weeks or even months and using what came out of the event to inform future messaging. Because your annual meeting, it should not be a 1-week spike. It's got to be a launch pad. That's where you start seeing real success year round. And finally, none of this works without alignment. The best teams, they're not figuring it out on site. They've already aligned the communications, the events, and with leadership. They've talked through their key messages, their spokespeople, the content priorities, and really identified what does success actually look like so that when they get on site, they're not reacting. They're executing. So as you start to think about your next annual conference, or even just reflect on the one you just had if it was recent, this is really the opportunity to shift from thinking about it as just an event to thinking about it as one of your most important visibility moments of the year. Because these are the moments where you've got energy, attention, access, and real stories. And when you approach them intentionally, they become so much more than a great experience for attendees. They become a driver of what you want to build in an association: credibility, connection, and long-term impact. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you'll join us again on another episode of the Association Insights podcast, powered by OnWrd and UpWrd. We'll see you next week. And that's a wrap for today's episode. The Association Insights podcast, powered by OnWrd and UpWrd, is a production of OnWrd and UpWrd Marketing and Communications, where our mission is to make associations and nonprofits the go-to source in their industries through earned media and thought leadership. This podcast is an extension of our newsletter, a weekly collection of best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies delivered straight to your inbox. Have you undertaken a big change at your association? Or do you have some words of wisdom from the trenches of association life? Well, we want to hear from you, and so do our listeners. Drop us a note at info@onwardupwrd.com. That's info@onwrdupwrd.com. Be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share with your friends and colleagues. We're available anywhere podcasts are found. Come back next week for more association inspiration and insights. Thanks for tuning in.